Hey. I can't find it. There's no other tab open. I don't know. I don't have anything open. Wow. What a week it is. Let's see. Fox News is right. CNN is left. I don't know if there's anything in the middle. We are living in a strange time in media culture. The media as we used to know it is no more. It's passive. It's outdated. It's all, to me, fake news. I've got an awesome guest. We're going to talk about it and the future of media in America. I'm Rob Nelson Live.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. My name's Rob Nelson. I used to have a talk show on Fox, a show on Fox News, but news in America is so produced. I don't care if you think it's left, right, center, fake news. You passed tougher legislation to deal with the paparazzi after what happened with you and your family.
I think it's very important that we focus on rebuilding.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Rob Nelson Live. So, it's been an interesting week, right? I mean, think about it. Kamala Harris is now the vice presidential nominee. And depending on what you listen to in the media, Kamala Harris is a whole lot of people. I mean, if you watch most mainstream media coverage, Kamala Harris is a centrist, moderate, possibly even slightly conservative. If you watch the debates, Kamala Harris was claimed to be as far left as she could go. Green New Deal, Medicare for all. She even wasn't sure you should be able to hold on to your private health insurance. Open borders, all of it she was for. Now she's a moderate, a centrist. And if you watch CNN, if you watch ABC, if you listen to the New York Times or read the New York Times, if anybody reads anymore, Kamala Harris is a centrist. What we're at is the age, I called it the Instagram presidency. the age where people are what we project them to be. You know, on Instagram, you put up your best image, your best view of yourself, and people are always like, here I am living my best life. And in reality, they're literally on the verge of suicide. And it's not a joke. I mean, you'll see people will say on social media, everyone's posting their best image of themselves. They want to be that image. But in reality, half the time they're miserable. They're not that image, but everybody buys it and wants to be that image. Well, that's what's happened with politics in America. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden are whatever image people want to project them to be. So honestly, I don't think Kamala Harris is anywhere near as close to progressive as she claimed to be in the primaries. In fact, as a prosecutor in San Francisco, as a DA, top cop, she was pretty friggin' conservative, pretty anti-minorities and reform and criminal justice reform. Joe Biden authored the 1994 crime bill, putting in place all kinds of inequalities in our criminal justice system. He's like the founding father of the massive criminal justice, if you believe we need massive criminal justice reform. Yet they're painted as this, like, they're going to change America and make it centrist. And again, we got an old white dude running for the head of the ticket that was supposed to be about diversity. Kamala Harris is black. That is diversity, and she probably will be president because I don't know he's going to make 4 years. But my point is, whatever image is projected, that's what people buy. And it's kind of scary because it sort of works. People have very short memories in the social media age we live in. They forget things instantly. What they're told, if they're told it enough times, they believe. So if you listen to CNN, you honestly, or MSNBC, or read the New York Times or the Washington Post, you honestly will see a completely different version of the world than if you watch Fox News. Completely different version of the same events, not just different interpretations of what it means. There's like two totally different worlds happened. It's like parallel universes that diverged, like in Counterpart, that cool show. Which, by the way, if you haven't watched Counterpart with J.K. Simmons, it was on Stars. You can get it on Amazon Prime. It's brilliant because in one of the split worlds, they have a pandemic and they're wearing masks and they have ads about what happens if you get near someone with the disease and you wear all the kids run away. You'd think they did it last year, but they did it like 2.5 years ago. It's like a brilliant foretelling and scary. Anyway, that's what we're in. Both medias, left and right, to me, are fragile. They're broken. They're dinosaurs. They're prehistoric. They're passive media platforms where they spew content at you that's packaged to fit what they think their viewers want and the narrative they want to tell. And it's not real voices of real people, even if they pretend it's a town hall or their panel of diversity experts of, this side and this side. It's not. It's all packaged. It's not the real voices of real people on either side. It's all at some level fake news. And by fake news, I mean news that's kind of driven by the narrative. The facts follow what the narrative they want it to be. And Bari Weiss, who resigned from the New York Times op-ed, and Andrew Sullivan, who was booted from Vox and New York Magazine, both said a version of the same thing. And by the way, both are, I would say, are pretty centrist-ish, to be honest. Bari Weiss is a bisexual San Francisco hip millennial. She's not conservative. She's centrist. And Andrew Sullivan, while he has some sometimes conservative views, he's ultimately everything anti-Trump and everything that the progressives really want, including being one of the first guys to come out as a mainstream journalist. And yet he said, I was fired because I dared to question the narrative. I didn't even disagree with all of it. I just questioned the stupidity of just kind of locking in this view with no critical thinking, in which you just have to kind of follow the boxes of what you've been told, and that's it. You accept it. Science is what we tell you science is. Science isn't looking at a bunch of information and making your own judgment based on the facts. The narrative's predetermined. And Bari Weiss said it best, when journalists used to tell the first version of history. Now the narrative defines what the history they tell you was and will be. It's a scary time. And meanwhile, people with diverging viewpoints are being censored, shut out of the dialogue. Social media platforms, shadow banning, it all happens. So where do the new voices emerge? Because I don't believe that most of the country is tied into these narrow little camps, although I think people are buying the Kool-Aid at a certain level. But if you ask most people, is Kamala Harris a liberal or a conservative, they'd be like, oh, she's super progressive. If you ask the diehard progressives, they'd say no. She and Joe Biden are super progressive, going to change America, do all the things we want on the left. They're empty shells. My next guest, my only guest tonight, Ken Emmons, is I got to call him like an American media badass. He started out in a lot of comedy, 24/7 comedy radio, the Comedy Express TV. He's built a little media empire of his own. but on a lot of sides of the media equation, both on sort of camera and in front of a mic and behind the scenes and in the inner workings behind it. And he's building an incredibly cool news platform called CRAVE News. Kent, thanks for being on the show.
With you. Hang on a second. Is my mic on for you?
You're on. We hear you loud and clear.
Can you hear me?
I'd like you to squeeze
Great.
a little closer
How are
to
you,
the camera
man?
if you could. I'm great.
Absolutely.
Can you come a little closer to your camera?
That?
Perfect. Because when you're far away, you look a little like
Absolutely.
Joe Biden, like a young Joe Biden.
There you go.
You know, and we don't want people to confuse you with a young
tough.
Joe Biden.
Although I will tell you, I think my hair plugs are a little better than his.
No, you're much better
do you
looking.
recall
I'm just
years
saying,
ago, back
distance,
in the 90s.
you know what?
Do you recall
all
years ago,
white
back
guys
in the
look
90s
same.
when he? Well, I guess it would have been the 80s when he. Well, in the dark, maybe, but remember in the 80s when he had his really bad hair plugs? He's since had them fixed.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
we were at a conference, and he happened to be sitting at the table with me at a National Association of Broadcasters conference one time. And, you know, it's a bunch of clowns, radio clowns sitting around. He had the misfortune of being sat at our table next to me, and we started giving him a bunch of crap about his hair plugs. And man, did he turn sour fast. We had to move on to the next subject. But he lit, you know how radio guys do. There's nothing off limits. And yeah, right. He was not a fan of talking about that. He was like, I don't even know what you mean. And then on to the next thing.
He though, you know, before we get on to the media stuff, you know, Joe Biden, it bothers, well, the media, it's part of the media stuff. The media refuses to depict Joe Biden for who he is, both in terms of what is substance of who he is, right? He doesn't get asked the questions. He doesn't have to defend his past policies, which, you know, even by his own party who wants certain changes, they're so determined not to have Trump that they'll pretend he's whatever they want. But he's not who he was. I mean, if you watch clips of him in the 80s and the 90s and even the early 2000s, it's not just like he's a little older. He is definitely slower and offbeat. And I'm not saying, I don't know how much is there or not there, but I mean, you can see it, right? I'm not inventing that he is markedly a step behind what he used to be. Everybody's a little when you're older, but
he's always just been a swampy guy. I mean, you know, the guy's just there to be there. He's never done anything. He's been there for 50 years, literally nothing's gotten done on his watch. So, I mean, nothing's really changed other than he is much slower. So he's slower at doing nothing than he used to be. He just does nothing a lot slower.
Why do you think, I mean, in the beginning, you know, everyone thought Biden wasn't going to make it. And then South Carolina happened and it sort of switched the tide and Bernie bailed out, which is, you know, like Bernie or not, like I feel like he's a cop out. Like he should have, if you believe what you're about, don't bow out just so you make sure Trump doesn't win. Like stick it out and be, what kind of champion is that? I'm going to step away because maybe you guys will win the game better without me versus I'm the answer. But all of a sudden Biden was anointed, the virus happens. And boom, and I'm not right. It's the even on Fox News, it's like it's not questioned in the sense of like he's a total fake of what he's a puppet of whatever people want to say, and the media really won't challenge that, right?
Well, they won't, and they're afraid to on a couple of levels. You know, one, again, I'm going to put my other earpiece in. I've got a house full of folks, as you know, out here at the ranch. We've got a little celebration tonight, so I'm going to put this in, so I'm not quite as loud. But as you know, he's one of these guys that's been in there forever. He was a safe bet for the Democrats when you think about it. I mean, Kamala Harris, she comes with so much baggage. They haven't even opened her baggage yet. When they start running her through the TSA check line with her baggage, it's all going to come out. But I mean, you know, she was not a safe bet. Bernie Sanders not a safe bet because there's just no way in hell he could have gotten elected. And then you look down the rest of it, it was just very weak people. You had Cory Booker. I mean, you had just some, you had that Yang. You had all these guys that, you know, there's no substance there. That guy from Texas, what's his name? The dork that married the billionaire's daughter. I didn't even think he was a congressman. You know, a really weak bench.
Right. And so let's talk about let's get into this, Ken. Let's get into what we really want to get to about the media landscape, right? I am a true believer that all the traditional media is broken, right? I mean, it's a joke, left or right. You may like one side's information better, but this very model is a broken model, a passive model that's losing viewers. It's not really honest and authentic. It's prepackaged. It's like it's 20 years out of date, and yet it still exists. And meanwhile, it censors, as do a lot of the social platforms, which is troubling, seem to censor conservatives, right? And that's not a made up thing, right? That there's a censorship kind of going on within the platforms of some form. Or am I making that up? Are people
I don't
being
think it's made up. I mean, you know what? I've had a lot of people who have shown me some pretty good evidence that they are, but I'm seeing on both sides where they're, people are being pulled here and there. It just happens to be on the right, tends to be a little bit more because the message and the truth tends to be harsh. And, you've got a bunch of snowflakes out there who really can't take the actual truth. And I don't mean that truth has to be a conservative or a right of center truth. It's just that the truth is sometimes harsh. What was that Jack Nicholson movie? You can't handle the truth. And so the truth, when laid out there in harsh terms, tends to, offend people. And earlier we were talking about it being cancel culture. I think it's more pander culture. So you have on the right, you have, Fox News, who panders to a bunch of old people with one particular, line of thinking and all that kind of stuff. On the left, you have MSNBC and CNN. They pander to a whole nother set of people. And instead of reporting the actual facts and then having an actual discussion about it, this is no kidding. You know this as well as I do. They will have a breaking story and they'll do a flash poll, and they will actually poll or survey what they want to hear about that story. In other words, what do you think the truth is about the story? So instead of getting the truth as they know it, no matter if it's right, left, indifferent, they will poll the audience first, and they'll go with it because they don't want to offend their audience, and they're afraid of their advertisers. They're afraid that, some little snowflake or some crazy, whether the crazy right or crazy left are going to, be offended by whatever it is they report and honestly talk about. So, they're a pander. They're just a bunch of panders. They're the media version of Joe Biden. They just pander.
Right.
They really
and yet people seem somewhat, people are somewhat though, like kind of, are most people aware of this? I sometimes wonder. I'll say it and I'll kind of get nods, but like, I wonder, are people actually, the whole thing you said about the focus testing, when there was a producer for Lawrence O'Donnell's show about 10 days ago who resigned, which is, liberal MSNBC, producer, hates Trump, and, leftist progressive, and said, our news is driven on MSNBC by Twitter. Like, Twitter's our editor in chief. We run with the stories that we think will get the most views, not the stories. And this is her, not the stories that are. And she was upset because she felt that there was news that was more valuable that wasn't being told because it doesn't rate. You have people inside networks acknowledging what you just said, that we run news based on clicks.
Well, they run facts based on clicks.
That's not news.
Well, it's not, but they will run what they say are facts based on what they're reading, what they're seeing, what they're picking up, in patterns on Twitter or whatever social media, platform they're watching, and they watch all of them. But again, they disregarding the actual facts, they will go with, okay, here's what's trending, here's what people want to hear, so let's report it, let's run with that, regardless of what the facts are. And by the way, that's on both sides. That's not exclusive to MSNBC.
Well, that's what's interesting about you, Kent, is that you're a conservative, obviously. So let it be known. Kent Emmons is
I am a militant centrist. I wouldn't line up with conservatives. I wouldn't line up with liberals. Matter of fact, I don't even like the word conservative. I don't like the word liberal. I don't Republican, Democrat, right, left. I think that you've got this, and you've got this huge audience of people who are common sense. The 80% of us agree on 90% of the same stuff, and those are actual numbers. Yeah. I think people are tired of hearing about conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican.
Right.
So I think that to say that I'm a conservative, yes, I'm fiscally conservative. When socially, I'm like probably just as far left. I'm just stay out of our biz.
Right.
And that's how most people are right now.
Right. So, and I said that partly to kind of elicit a response, I'll be honest. But I was literally on a show last week, Bullet Point Nation, their show, these two guys, and they are conservative. But I had said the same conversation where I said, I don't like the label anymore. Conservative, liberal, left, right. It's like literally misses the point. And yet, and I thought you put it beautifully and articulately, like, hey, I I don't even like the word centrist because it implies that you're somehow in the middle of the left and the right. And the reality is you're just pragmatic. It's not about left or right. It's about what's a pragmatic solution. What do we need? I think most people
It's
a lot
common
of people
sense.
share that. Yeah, but I think a lot of people share that. But the minute they hear you say something, every network, both left and right, is going to label you a conservative. And that's the problem I have. Fox News would call you a conservative and MSNBC would call you a conservative. Neither one would acknowledge that you are fiercely independent, pragmatic, looking for common sense solutions, and actually are sick and tired of the box, period.
Well, and again, 80%, these are real numbers. 80% of the American public agrees on 90% of the same stuff. That's no kidding. And I wrote an entire book about it that I will plug. The Common Sense 80%.
Plug the book. What's it called? Let's see it.
It is called the
Hold it
Common
back
Sense.
up. Let's see it again.
There you go.
We'll put a chyron up on the screen.
There it is. But
Common Sense 80%. We'll put a chyron up on the screen. Where can people get it, Ken? Just to interrupt you. Where can people get the book?
Go to Amazon and buy that book. It's a bestseller. It's been great. But let's get back to the topic at hand. The subject of the book is about the fact that 80% of the people do agree on 90% of the same stuff. And we go through a lot of the topics, whether it be how we're taxed, whether it be social issues, whether it be, there's a million different issues, or not a million, but we go through about 20. And 80% of the people agree. Actually, it's more like 90% of the people agree on 95% of the same stuff. Very little do most of us disagree on. But it feels like, in this last 10 years, people have felt like they've had to take a side, and they don't have to take a side. I think you're seeing people come along.
That's a good point.
Wait, you don't. And think about Trump. He's a Democrat at his core, from a party standpoint, but he governs. He governs conservatively in a business way. Socially, he's had to be dragged to the right a little bit, to pander a little bit to the right wing. But I mean, that's not him. And you take a look at him, the reason he was so popular and the reason so many people crossed over from the left to vote for him is because he's not a crazy right winger. And the reason, a lot of people, voted for Bernie is because, he's a left winger as hell, but he wasn't out there as far as like his social policies. You see what I'm saying? Now, fiscally, people thought he was batshit crazy, which he is. But but again, you take a look at Trump. He is the ultimate centrist. He will go out. He'll pander. I love him. I love his policy. I love his policy.
Yeah.
But he will pander to the conservative because look, the Republican ticket was open, and so he grabbed it. And thank God he did, because he's one of these guys who broke down a lot of walls. You think about him, and you think about how in the center he is, and how well liked he was. Think about his speech when his nomination speech, his acceptance speech at the convention 4 years ago about now, where he included the gays. He mentioned it was either in that speech or one of his debates. They were, and when he mentioned, it was right after that Orlando shooting, and he said, prayers out to our gay brothers and sisters and all that kind of stuff. And 90% of the room went, thank God he finally, some Republican finally acknowledged our gay brothers and sisters. And 10% of them were like, oh, but 90% went, okay, we're being inclusive now. Then they got the point. Hang on one sec. But then in one of the debates, I think it was in one of the debates, they were going around those 16 swampy people, and then Trump, who stood out, who was not a swamper, and they were bashing Planned Parenthood. And he just came out and said, hey, you know what? I'm not shutting down Planned Parenthood. There's a lot of women that actually that need Planned Parenthood for their health care and that kind of thing. And he said, no, I'm not going to support government-funded abortions. That's the big beef they've got. He goes, well, I'm not shutting the rest of it down. Again, you had 90% of the Republicans applauding that. The 10% crazy, not even 10%, 5% crazy hard right-wingers they're the devil, which they sort of are. But Trump pragmatically looked at it, not from having to pander to the far, far right wing. And there's room for that in Democrats. There's a lot of Democrats that are now coming to the center as well.
But both parties are, in my view, massively flawed. And part of what I think, again, I always feel I'm defending Trump, and I'm not trying to defend certain things about him, but I think Trump offended everybody who was part of the institutional nature. Both parties are very locked down, you know, and my background working in politics when I was in my 20s, I saw how both parties were, you know, on this whole voting stuff. You know, my group leader, Leave, we were all about accountability on the deficit, and we got pushback from both sides where it affected them and acceptance where they want. But one of the things we tried to do, because we were a Gen X youth thing, was we tried to push for a voting expansion of voting access. We were arguing, hey, it's stupid that voting is so hard to do, and especially with young people. And one of the proposals we had was to put voting booths on campuses and let people vote on their campus, college campus, rather than from the place their parents were from, right? And we kind of crafted this whole proposal, and we got more pushback from Democrats than Republicans because they were terrified in a place like Madison, Wisconsin, or any Big Ten school, or you'd have enough votes to sweep a congressional office right out. All you could run a student, get everyone to vote for him, you'd knock anybody out. And my point is, Democrats weren't all about liberalizing and enfranchising. I was in the rooms with people going, come on. And they were like, because I was like, right, you're afraid of losing your seats as much as, and we make it like one side or the other, but both sides are determined to hold on to their little power thing and keep it between them. And it screws the rest of the country, screws everybody else.
Well, it does. But, you know, you take a look at your movement, Lead or Leave. That was one of those absolute revolutionary things that works to this very day. You're the first guy to do it. But I mean, that's one of those things that needs to be out there today, because again, you get these Congress people that come in, and you and I have talked about this before. We've talked about running a slate of amazing candidates that are Democrats, Republicans, but all on one great platform where we agree that here are 5 or 6 issues that need to be taken care of. Everything else can take the back seat for the time being. And Lead or Leave was all about that. It wasn't about being a Democrat or Republican. That was about stepping up, doing what you said you were going to do, or leaving, getting the hell out, which a lot of these people need to do on both sides. I mean, you got it on both sides.
Yeah. And I want to talk about this idea about the slate of candidates. So I just want to say to your point, you know, we found that pushback. Again, the media viewed us and within things as probably we were considered more liberal. I wouldn't say we were, but even then people were putting labels on you, right? And we were young, and we were this youth group, and we had a lot of progressive, you know, a lot of actors and stuff behind us and big rallies. So people assumed more liberal. We were like, we're just not left or right on this. We're trying to force accountability around the deficit before it destroys the next generation, which F that. We've done that times 10 now. So the Z generation is in big trouble. But I remember sitting in George Stephanopoulos' office before he was a hack for ABC, when he was just a hack for the White House. Sorry, that's mean to say, but he was the same guy. He was the same guy in politics. Like, he was the same. Like, I knew him and Rahm Emanuel. At least Rahm Emanuel was like, he was like the Karl Rove of the Democratic Party. He was like, I am all about taking down the Republicans. I don't care how. I admire they didn't hide it, you know? Whereas George kind of always just
he and his brothers have got it wired. He's got
George
the government wired. The brothers have got everything else wired.
Right. And they're both like hard asses as hell, you know, like they're not easy human beings, but you know, they're kind of dicks, but they are, let's be honest.
Look at the wonders he did for Chicago, though. Whoever would have thought that Chicagoans would have said, wow, do you remember the good old days of Rahm Emanuel? I mean, we've hit it. We've hit that. We've hit the peak.
Yeah, they are right now, though. That is what's happening as violence erupts all over Chicago constantly. And I want to get to that. So here's my quick thing about George. We literally sat inside his office at the White House after we'd published an op-ed in the New York Times that was critical of Clinton. And he said, look, we want to bring you guys on. We don't want Republicans to be a part of this anymore. We'll bring you into the fold of the White House and of the Democratic Party. We will help you get funding, and we will promise you 3 events a year that President Clinton will come to. That's a lot to have the president come to 3 things that you're doing. And he said, and the only condition is you cannot say anything negative anymore about the president. And I was like, come on, George. I was like, we're not partisan. It's about everybody. And I'll never forget, he looked at me And he went from Mr. Nice Guy to Mr. Asshole. And he literally said, I will make it my mission to destroy you. I will undercut your funding. I will get you trashed in the press. I will literally destroy your organization. And it's like, are you threatening me? And he pointed to the wall and he's like, the president is sitting, the United States is sitting on the other side of that door. I don't make threats I can't keep. And truthfully, they did like literally have to destroy us. But my point is like they're all
by the way, had he not been getting a blowjob on the other side of that wall, he would have brought him in and pulled you on the carpet. I'm just guessing.
By a guy or a girl is the question. Hey, you know what? Are you allowed to? That's part of the cancel pander culture. Are you allowed to say? Are you allowed to say? I've always thought George Stephanopoulos was gay. Are you allowed to say that? Now am I going to get canceled? Like, can we say what we want? Is there a place where we can still say what we want? You're trying to launch something, but can we? I mean, literally, right now in the mainstream, even on platforms like this, you'll get censored if you get Candace Owens kind of thing. You'll get blowing up, and shut down. They shut down her GoFundMe.
It's again. Why they did that with her, who knows? Because she has a wonderful message. She's not fighting. I mean, she's great. She doesn't stretch the truth. I think she has I've known her since day one at Turning Point, and I've been in the White House with her a couple of times, and Don Jr.'s office together with her. And I've watched her operate. She's a great, great gal. And why they would do that, and again, with no excuse, I don't have any idea. But here's the thing, Rob. The American people, especially under, a younger American, 50 and under, are really seeking raw and real talk. They want to talk about the issues like we were sitting around a bar drinking whiskey. In other words, one thing you and I have talked about for quite some time is people want to hear the facts of the news, no matter how they lay, whether they lay with your opinion or not with your opinion. Here's exactly what happened. Then you sit around, get your Jack and Diet Coke, and start talking with your friends about it. And if we're making a joke like we did a minute ago about Clinton getting a blowjob in the next room, or you're making a joke, whatever it may be, you're talking like guys and gals would talk. Right. And, this cancel culture thing, what you're seeing, this has been brewing for quite some time, which is why you're seeing numbers on these networks going down so much. There's nothing real and raw about MSNBC or about Fox News or about, CNN. They're pander machines. They literally just pander. So what you're seeing is amazing digital outlets like in the sports side, for instance, Barstool Sports, Dave and those guys. It's raw, real talk. They make us look like schoolboys or like choir boys. Right. But that's what people want to hear now. They're tired of hearing talking heads and great haircuts reading off a teleprompter, and then that's it.
But people do want to hear it, Kent. And to that idea, you backing you up a second, you said why they went after Candace Owens. In my view, it's because Candace Owens didn't fit the narrative of what an attractive, smart black woman who's young, a millennial, should say. It's kind of like Biden saying you're not black if you don't vote for me, or black people aren't diverse like Latinos, meaning they all think politically the same. Yeah. And I think that's why it's like, can't have someone like that out there articulately making the case. That'll actually look good. And it is that blatant to me, whether it's conscious or not. And when you say, like Barstool or whatever, the ability to have the conversation, like I think most people do want it. When I talk to people on the street, when I've even done man on the street stuff, people are refreshed that I don't do this BS. I just go for it and say what I'm thinking. I don't hide who I am. I don't hide what biases I have. And I ask that, and I don't think they want it to be all watered down and censored and don't use the word and don't say this and don't talk, you literally can't talk about blackface. People go nuts. I asked people about it on the street. The black people I asked were all like, it sucks, but people just need to grow up a little. The white people were like, almost don't even say the word, here's what we do. We eliminate words.
A lot of my friends, as my group of friends is as diverse as you get. I mean, whether it be race, sexuality, whatever. I mean, politically very diverse. And, most people are just sick of the labels. They're sick politically. They're sick of the race stuff going on. My black friends, my Asian friends, they're just sick of it. It's like, we're fucking people. We are all people. We are all getting along. We're all having fun. And you have these race baiters on the left and the right and the right too, and they make a big deal out of a big stink about stuff. And it really, these are things that wouldn't necessarily occur to people otherwise. And one of my dear good friends, black couple, they said, the thing is, the people who are already that victimhood mentality will take that bait and they'll run with it. And that's where BLM and organizations like that came from. So, people are just sick of the whole race thing. They're just sick of it.
Mm-hmm. I think they are. But so again, Ken, people are sick of this stuff. They're tired of it, but yet it's what dominates. And the pander culture, call it the cancel culture. I mean, I only say the cancel part because I feel like there is an attempt to truly silence voices that are not saying what the mainstream narrative wants it to be. And if you try to say them, they will. My point in saying Candace Owens was they went as far as to shut down her GoFundMe, like literally to argue because she was supporting a guy who called protesters idiots, which everyone has a right to say. You can say you're idiots. That's not a crime. Like that somehow that was a hate crime to call supporting a guy who called protesters idiots. Like, hey, I think protesters were idiots. Like, I don't actually think all of them were, but I don't think it's offensive to sort of just call people out the same way you can say, I think a bunch of people who go to church are idiots if you're an atheist. Like, it's just bizarre to me. So how do people get through, Ken? You're trying to do what you're trying. Can we get away? Can we have real conversation where we just uncensor it? We couldn't say the N-word right now. Even in context, we wouldn't be allowed to. We'd be shot down if you even said it in context. And by that I mean if you said it not to say it. If you were singing a song like several celebrities have done in their cars or on whatever to the words of a song they like and they use the N-word, they have to apologize for having thought it was okay to repeat the word in a song they were singing. It's happened even with Latinas. Like, it's like nuts.
Well, it is. And again, if somebody's dumb enough to use the word, they deserve whatever comes down on their head. Really, I believe. I just, look, it's one of those words you think about it. You hear it and you just go, shit, did you really have to even go there, even in context? But by the same token, again, if you move it back.
But just to be clear, Ken, I'm not saying someone just saying it. I was just saying, I'm not saying it. I just want to be clear. I was saying if you were even using it in the context of something, you're not allowed to actually, and I'm fine. Let that word go. I don't mean to make it about that. I'm just saying we're going to start eliminating more words and more things because it becomes, it's almost like thought control. You're not allowed to express certain words, ideas, whatever. And that's scary to me.
Well, Rob,
even if they're offensive.
Here's something that nobody's really done, and part of our network, one of the shows we have in development is called The Race Card, and it's a group of very diverse group of people who are not afraid of having some fun. A lot of them comedians, so black, white, Asian, Indian, you name it. It's covers the gamut, and it's really fun having fun with the race thing and making fun of the people who make race such a big thing. It's really amazing to me that people NBC Nightly News, you watch Lester Holt, for instance, and literally, this is no kidding. The other night, we're watching the NBC Nightly News, and they had, 12 stories or whatever. 9 of them had to do with black this, black this, black this. And one of my friends, very huge black business guy, big, we're talking the next morning, and he said, God damn it. He goes, have you guys not been making news either? He goes, shit. He goes, you whites are, in his term, he said, you crackers are slacking. He goes, you're not even making the news. And so again, it's that pander culture where they go, okay, everybody wants to hear about Black Lives Matter. So let's talk about that. Right. And what they don't realize is that, the black folks of substance are sick of it. They're just absolutely sick of it. And it's insulting to them. And it's also, by the way, they feel like it's dragging, like he had said before, they feel like, and he and his wife both said, they feel like they're dragging they're dragging those people into the victimhood mentality, and the people that are already into victimhood mentality, they're baiting them even more and reeling them in.
Yeah, Ken, and let me just say, I think it's on both sides. I think you would find a lot of people from the impoverished communities, the inner cities, if you talk to them, and I've asked people, they don't think this is doing crap. They're like, what is a bunch of people protesting doing to change the actual life I lead on the ground in a community that's ravished, that doesn't have economic investment, that has drugs, violence, gangs, bad schools, and that they don't think, and I'm just going to say this. I'm not against people protesting, but I'm sick of the self-righteousness of it all, because this is the safest, easiest country in the world to protest. It's almost like going to a party. In fact, more than that, we'll actually let you out of school, give you a pass. There's no real consequence. There's no risk involved. Where in most countries, you're protesting, like Hong Kong, you're protesting your very livelihood, and you could get shot, killed, arrested. This is the easiest place in the world to protest and put it up. And it's almost like, well, okay, do something.
The people that are really down with the cause, the actual cause of moving things forward racially, they believe that this whole BLM thing and the protest, the protest, obviously, I think the protest and the riots are two separate people. You got the rioters that glom onto the protesters, but they believe this whole BLM thing, highly uninformed, very destructive to the actual cause. And it's also a big distraction. So, when you take a look at the folks who are really working the cause, they feel like because the people are so uninformed, yet the media feels so like they have to cover this, or they're racist, or they're not pandering enough. Again, the more established, black, business people and the more educated tend to see this thing as horribly destructive and very distracting to the real, the real movement at hand.
Right. Kent, I got to follow up on that. Let me just say, we have an Instagram poll. So let's just put it up, Bruce, if you would. It's a quick Instagram poll people can answer. Basically, there it is. See it right between us. It's, would you rather have, sort of politicians address COVID than race? Like, which are you rather have them talk about? You got to pick one, COVID or race. You can't pick sports. But honestly, don't even get me going on COVID, because that's a whole nother. But Kent, okay, thanks, Bruce. That's awesome. So Kent, how does Crave News, your platform, how does that have a chance at addressing that? Obviously, my bias to people. I'm a big fan of what Kent is doing, and support it and want to be part of it. I believe it's a good thing and it's necessary. But I want you to tell people, Kent, kind of what it is, because it's not just another left-right news platform. There's people trying to do it. You're really trying to create kind of a voice of the people network that gets to the 80% of people who feel unrepresented right now, right?
Yeah, Rob, here's what it is. People, again, they're sick of having the news spoon-fed to them based on, flash polls and surveys and like quick focus groups and things like that. They want the facts, and then they want to have a real and raw discussion about it. That's what Crave will provide. When we're up cranking on the air, it'll be real and raw, actual discussion. Now, if I'm on, I'm going to give my opinion. If whoever's on, they're going to give their opinion, but they're not talking head opinions. These are people that are like really sharp, really on top of it, and it's no holes barred. It's not, Anderson Cooper all, with a stick up his ass, or Tucker Carlson, always taking, defending the right or whatever it is. This is like real and raw stuff. And, after hours, it'll be happy hour. It'll be the McLaughlin Group on cocktails, but it's going to be people sitting around talking like we talk. You think about, Rob, if we're at Starbucks and we're talking, and you've seen some of the people who've joined our conversation. We get pretty real and raw, and people want to hear that. Right. They're tired of hearing the same crap all day long. Yeah. So that's really the big difference. But on the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour, you do have actual news. So you have the news, actual news as facts, and the opinion around here. But it's not, it's not the opinion where, again, I love Sean Hannity. He's a great guy. But you know what? Trump could, lay the biggest turd out on the planet. And, Hannity walks on water, never laid a turd, doesn't even make turds. Right. That's how great, and, somebody's got to call both sides out. Now, again, I love Trump's policy, but he is kind of a target. He's a fun guy to talk about. But I love his policy. Most of it.
Well, but right. And look, first of all, I love the cocktail hour. And just so everybody knows, I'm going to reveal a little secret about Kent. He drinks Jack and Tab. If you even knew Tab existed anymore, if you might have not known Tab's still around, Kent has like a whole special reserve of Tab for his Tab and Jack. It's a unique drink.
Now,
it's a very
Rob,
unique drink for those who want to be special.
You're coming out to the ranch this evening, from what I understand, to join us for this celebration, for the surprise birthday party for a wonderful congressional candidate buddy of ours. And when you get here, I've got a Jack and Tab waiting for you.
Right. I'm going to try it. Yeah, no, I'm psyched. Can we say who it is the party's for?
Yeah, he's probably en route, so he's probably not listening. Eric Early, who is actually running against Adam Schiff.
Eric Early, right?
And yep. So great guy. You know,
he's actually coming on the show next week.
Yeah, and he's a great guy. You know, he's the first really credible candidate they've ever had in that congressional seat for 20 years since Schiff got elected. And of course, you know, he's one of these guys that you take a look at that district. People think of Adam Schiff now as this hero to the left because he went after Trump and stuff like that. What they don't think about is the condition of his district. And that's something that, I mean, if people could come here to Southern California and look at that district where, you know, places that were pristine and amazing are now filled with homeless people who are not being taken care of, needles, poop all over the street. They've got poop maps just like they have in San Francisco. That's a whole nother thing, this whole Kamala Harris thing. You know, it's shocking to me that they picked her because, you know, look what she's been an elected official in California for years, and look what she's done to this state. And is she going to take that franchise and give it to the rest of the country? Homeless people, drug problems, record debts, horrible streets, terrible infrastructure. They're going to have almost $100 billion deficit in California. These people are out of their minds. And again, you know, it's the Schiffs, it's the Kamala Harris's, you know, it's you know, take a look at the condition of, if you want to know whether or not you should vote for Kamala Harris, take a look at the condition of California.
Yeah. Well, listen, but it's not about that. It's about, quick. We're running out of time, Kent. 15 seconds, predictions. Who wins the election? I got asked this question the other day. You know, I'm going to ask.
I've been asked this question on air a million times. And here's what, being a media guy, the media cycle is so fast and so quick now, and everything changes on a dime. And you've got COVID with so much misinformation out there. I think it comes down to the last week. Obviously, you've got mail-in ballots. You've got all this stuff going on. I think it comes down to the last week when it comes to people who are actually coming out to vote. As far as like the mail-in ballots and that kind of thing, I have no clue on that one. I mean, I think that's probably going to be split where we think it's going to be split.
No, and you know, it's funny. I had the same thought. I said anybody who thinks they can call this election is full of it, because there's so much. There is no way you can know at this point, and either side could win this one. And you're right; it's going to come down to the very end. Future of social media platforms. Are we going to break them up? Are we going to regulate them? Is our parlors and sort of others that are more friendly to conservatives going to emerge and be strong enough? Like, again, short answer. I know I'm asking you
Well, no, it's actually a pretty easy question, I think. As technology emerges and you have these out-of-the-box solutions that allow people to set up their own social media platforms, I think you're going to see a lot of these things splinter off and people spending a lot more time, just like they used to spend time on only 3 TV networks, like when we were kids. Then a bunch of cable networks came along, so it divided the audience. Then several social media platforms came along, divided the audience. And as the availability and as the ease of being able to launch these social media platforms happen, I think you'll see a lot of them happen, and they'll be more splintered. And it kind of goes back to the long tail theory. You know, you're going to have, you know, people who like being here, people who like being there.
Right. Okay, last one. We've talked about this again. I'm all about transparency to everybody watching. So this is not the first time I've asked Kent about this, but over time we've kind of built up. Kent, the possibility of a slate of candidates in 2022 for Congress, getting people to run on a platform where you take a simple pledge to a few ideas that are core principles. You could be on a Democrat or Republican, center, whatever. Because if you agree to these basic systemic principles, whether it's term limits or this or that, like, they're fundamentals. They're not, are you for abortion? Are you pro-choice? Are you gay, pro rights, none of that stuff. It's about structural issues. What chance would we have to get like even 20 people elected on that ticket where they pledge to a couple things and they put their resignation, as you say, signed and sealed in a box if they drop?
I think it's a pretty good shot. We have in 2022, of course, every election cycle, every 2-year cycle, we have 435 House seats that are up and available. Typically, not a lot of those turn over. What, about 10% turnover every year or something like that, 8 or 10%? And we have 34 Senate seats up in 2022. Is it 34 this time or 34 2020? Whatever, it's 33 or 34 Senate seats. It really just requires us going out and finding really good candidates. And if it's in a blue district, you find somebody who will sign on to the things that really make a difference. In other words, our country is nothing unless we're fiscally sound on the global stage, and we have a good military. That's really kind of where it's at, and we're taking care of our people. Until that happens, all these side issues like abortion and gay rights and all this kind of stuff make no sense other than for establishment candidates fundraising. That's all those sideshow issues. That's all they're good for.
So could we elect 20 people, do you think?
I think we could elect 100. I really do. I think we could elect 100 House members. I really do. And again, it doesn't make it Republican, Democrat, middle of the road. The biggest thing is they have to be loyal to that platform, 100% loyal to the platform outside of their party. And they have to say, you know what, I'll go to my party caucus meetings, but I'm not, I'm not playing along.
Yep. No, I love it. And me, I call it the national enema. I'd like to throw every single elected member of Congress out and put somebody new in, just refresh the tank. Well,
and look, at the end of the day, I always refer back to my dad, who was the head of his city council, one of the biggest vote getters. What's that? I lost you there for a second. Rob, I lost you there. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so I was going to say, my dad, who was a record vote getter in his little town there in Illinois, for city council, always got the most votes, very well liked, great guy. And, when the way he decided not to run, he said, you know what, when somebody comes along that I think can do a great job, there's no need for me to run. We're in good hands. Right now, we have a real need for really good people to run. A lot of times people don't want the invasiveness of a congressional campaign or a Senate campaign. But, Trump has kind of kicked that wall down. Right. I mean, you take a look at the arrows that have been shot first at his back and then right between the eyes. And he took those arrows and he went through. Clinton could have done the same thing back with the Monica Lewinsky thing. He could have said, yeah, I did it. Let's move on. Yeah. And because he was well-liked guy on both sides.
Yep.
So I think that people need to take whatever skeletons they've got in their closet, throw them out front, and be a hero to the country and run. If you have something to offer, run.
Hey, I want real people. I don't want perfect people or people who Instagram pretend to be perfect people. I want you with all your warts, all your flaws, all your baggage. I want to know what that is, and then I want to elect you and have you stay for a very short amount of time. Kent, it's been awesome having you on. And CRAVE News, I'm excited. I want to talk you into teaming up with Barstool, and we do the bar tour. We do go from bar to bar.
That's a great idea.
He left the screen. All right, I want to go bar to bar to bar and do. You're back. We lost everything. Went away. They've censored, shadow banned me. All I was saying is, I want to go bar to bar to bar and have the conversation with real people about what really matters to them while we're drinking across America. As CRAVE News.
As long as they've got Jack and Tab, I'm there. I'm with you.
All right, 100%. Excellent. Ken, thank you so much for being part of this. Everybody, thanks for watching. Again, you can see the replay, so share it with other people, share the stream with other people. And get your comments to try to respond to them after the fact. Sorry, we had a few tech issues. It's the COVID. The COVID's making us all have tech issues. But listen to what Kent is saying. He is giving you wisdom. He really is a smart He's funny, but he's smart. And he understands something about what's happening. And when you hear him say, it's not about left, it's not about right, it's not about Democrats, it's not about Republicans, both parties are all messed up. It's about all of you out there who are actually going, you know what? I just want things to work. I just want some common sense solutions to problems, whether I'm in an inner city or whether I'm in a nice suburb, whether I'm living in a mansion. Can we just figure out how to fix some problems and do it together? That's what the vast majority of this country wants. If you're among those people, you should be paying attention to what Ken Emmons is saying. All right, everybody, thanks. I'm Rob Nelson. It's Rob Nelson Live.